He warned them, he gave them every chance, and when they spit in America's face one last time, President Donald J. Trump unleashed the most devastating military strike since 9/11, flattening Iran's nuclear sites, crippling their future, and sending shockwaves across the globe. It was flawless. It was flawless. 7 B-2 stealth bombers, 14 30,000-pound bunker busters, and not a single Iranian radar detected a thing. The world watched in disbelief. Even the mainstream media couldn't hide their praise. President Trump did what no other president could. Iran's nuclear ambition obliterated. But just as America stood tall, came the knife from behind. A member of Trump's own party, Republican Congressman Thomas Massie, launched a war powers revolt, accusing the president of overreach and demanding Congress strip his authority. Wait, what? After President Trump just crushed our enemy without a single U.S. casualty, he gets stabbed by his own side? Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just a foreign policy victory. This is a political firestorm. So today, I'm going to show you the untold details of Operation Midnight Hammer, how Iran's nuclear program collapsed overnight, why Thomas Massie turned on Trump at the worst possible moment, and the brutal response from President Trump that is splintering the GOP in real time, guys, because this is just unreal what's happening right now. This may actually reshape the entire future of the Republican Party. By the way, if you appreciate the daily news updates, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. So let me go ahead and walk you through what just happened, because I don't think most people fully grasp the scale, the sophistication, or even the political fallout that's now rippling through Washington, D.C., Tehran, and beyond. So on the night of June 22nd, while the world was sleeping, President Donald J. Trump made a move that will go down in military history. It was swift, it was precise, it was devastating. The mission, codename Operation Midnight Hammer. And folks, the name fits, because what came down on Iran was nothing short of a tactical sledgehammer delivered from the sky. 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers lifted off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, the heart of America, loaded with 14 of the deadliest bombs ever built, each one weighing 30,000 pounds. Not metaphorical bombs. These are real bombs, steel, earth-shattering ordnance. And these weren't just any targets. We're talking about Natanz and Fordow, Iran's most fortified nuclear enrichment facilities. The same ones that global leaders have tiptoed around for about a decade. The same ones that the previous administration said were, just too risky to hit. Well, Trump hit them anyway, and he hit them real hard. Natanz, obliterated, not damaged, not crippled, erased. Fordow, still awaiting final battle damage assessment, but early reports are suggesting that it's been neutralized or evacuated in a last-minute panic. Now, let me explain the brilliance behind the strike itself, because this wasn't just a show of force. It was a masterclass in strategic deception. The B-2s flew out under total radio silence, refueling midair several times over an 18-hour operation. And get this, they didn't even fly directly toward the Middle East at first. A decoy force peeled off into the Pacific to distract Iranian-Russian radar. So while Tehran's eyes were fixed on the wrong sky, the real strike force came in invisible, riding the edge of night and silence, bypassing every defense system in their path. Not a single Iranian jet scrambled, not a single missile launched, not even a blip on their radar. And by the time Iran realized what was happening, it was already over. Their most valuable nuclear infrastructure reduced to ash. Think about it. Think about what that means. Think about what it takes to completely dismantle one of the world's most dangerous nuclear threats in a single night without a single American life lost. That's not just military power. That is presidential clarity. That's leadership in action. Oh, and it gets even bigger, because this wasn't a random act. This wasn't a reaction to some breaking news. This was a calculated, telegraphed ultimatum. Trump had been warning Iran for months. Some would even argue for years. He said it as far back as 2011. Iran must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. When he became president again in 2025, he gave them every diplomatic off-ramp that you could even ask for. Think about it. He gave them a 60-day window to come to the table, a 2-week final warning, and then silence from Tehran. Until last Thursday, when Iran's foreign minister arrogantly declared that they had no interest in further talks. That was the final straw. And on Friday night into Saturday morning, President Trump delivered the response. You refused peace. You chose defiance. Now you live with the consequences. And the world was watching. Even mainstream media, yes, even MSNBC, had to admit it was brilliant, flawless, unbelievable. But here's the part that nobody saw coming. Because as President Trump asserted American dominance on the global stage, as he protected our allies, as he sent the strongest message to rogue regimes since Reagan stood at the Berlin Wall, a knife came from within the tent. Right inside of the tent is where the knife came from. Just as the operation wrapped up, just as the world was gasping at what America just pulled off, a Republican congressman stepped forward, not to celebrate, but to try and strip Trump of his power. Can you believe that, guys? A man who claims to be a part of the America First movement, a man who claims to be pro-Constitution, a man who claims to stand for national defense, he turned on Trump. And guys, we're going to name names because the stab in the back came from Thomas Massie, and what he did next may be the start of a civil war inside the GOP. But before we get there, let's take a look at how Iran responded after the dust settled and why they're more vulnerable than ever. Now, if Medicare has you confused, overcharged, or feeling stuck, you're not alone. But now you've got someone who can actually fix what the system messed up. Julie from Kansas trusted a local broker and got pushed into a horrible plan that charged her more money just to see her doctor. Chapter helped her switch to a better plan, and now she's saving $400 per year. Catherine Garcia, she shared this amazing message with me. She said they are caring, compassionate, and incredibly helpful. I actually talked to a real person. I am all taken care of and absolutely owe nothing. All paid for. Guys, if you've been burned, confused, or left in the dark, Chapter is here to help you to take back control. Give our friends at Chapter a call. Phone number's down below. You should see it on your screen right now. Or hit them up on their website at askchapter.org/Ron. It's totally free, no pressure, no confusion, just real help from people who know how to fix it. So how did Iran respond? Exactly how you would expect from a regime that just got basically caught flat-footed, humiliated in front of the entire world, and ultimately stripped of their greatest bargaining chip. So in the immediate aftermath, the Islamic Republic of Iran officially confirmed the attacks. Not denied, not spun, confirmed. That alone tells you everything. They were shocked. They were unprepared, and more than anything, they were exposed. But here's where it gets real interesting. Instead of doubling down on defiance, Iran's foreign minister gave a panicked interview saying, of course, the door for diplomacy should always stay open, but this is not the case right now. We have to respond based on our legitimate right of self-defense. So in other words, we just got hit so hard, we don't know whether to beg or bark. And as always, the regime did what it does best. It bluffed. The Iranian parliament scrambled and voted to try to close the Strait of Hormuz, the critical 60-mile wide waterway that controls nearly 60% of the world's oil flow. Sounds kind of scary, right? Well, maybe in a headline, but here's the truth. It's all noise. They've never actually closed the strait. Why? Because they can't, and they know it. Even if they tried, it would backfire in two ways. Number one, Israel would start picking off Iranian naval assets instantly. Their speedboats and the naval posts, gone in minutes. China, their biggest oil customer, would turn on them overnight. You close the strait, you choke China's supply. That is economic suicide. So no, Iran isn't about to launch a war. They just watch their nuclear program get flattened in real time. They are in no position to be challenging the U.S. militarily, and they know that. But the bigger question right now is this: how much damage was actually done? What's the full extent of the destruction? And the early battle damage assessment, the BDA, is staggering. According to parliamentary and U.S. intelligence, Natanz, the primary site for enriching uranium up to 60% purity, completely obliterated. Intel suggests the entire stockpile of enriched uranium may have still been on the ground or may have still been on site during the strike. But if that is actually true, that means months, if not years, of nuclear advancement were just vaporized. Fordow, Iran's most fortified underground site, open source intel shows the Iranians may have moved some material out in the final hours, possibly tipped off. But even then, it no longer matters. Their infrastructure is destroyed. Their ability to enrich new uranium has been set back by a decade or more. Think about that. In 48 hours, Trump not only erased Iran's leverage, he flipped the entire negotiating table upside down. And now Trump holds every card. And yet, despite this enormous victory for peace, for security, and for American strength, the most disgraceful twist of all is what came next. It's not from Tehran, but it's actually from Washington, D.C. A man wearing a Republican pin on his lapel, a man elected by our side, walked to a podium and called out President Trump for doing his job. Yeah, we're going to go there next. And I promise you, this is going to make your blood boil, guys, because it wasn't the enemy abroad that tried to stop Trump. It was one of our own. So let's talk about the bigger picture here, okay? Because if you think that this strike was just about dropping bombs, think again. This is about doctrine, Trump doctrine. You see, President Donald J. Trump, he's been dead serious about Iran for over a decade. You can go back to 2011. Even before he was ever elected the first time, he said loud and clear, Iran must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Not shouldn't, not hopefully won't, must never have one. And unlike every other politician in Washington, D.C. who talks big game, Trump actually meant what he said. So when he took office in January 2025, he didn't walk in and guess. He walked in with a plan. First, he gave Iran a 60-day window to come to the negotiating table. They ignored it. Then a 2-week final warning. Still, they mocked us. Then on January 20th, Iran's foreign minister publicly declared they would not talk. That was the final insult. Trump didn't hesitate. And 2 nights later, Iran's nuclear ambition was obliterated in a firestorm of steel and silence. And so here's what most people don't know. The strike wasn't even the most powerful part of the operation, because part 2 of President Trump's plan was already underway before the bombs even dropped. Quietly behind the scenes, key U.S. personnel and embassy staff were already being evacuated from the high-risk zones. We covered this in previous video. Defensive assets, missile shields, naval carriers, rapid response teams, they were already being redeployed across the Gulf. Israel was fully briefed, ready to strike Iranian proxies in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq the moment Trump gave the go-ahead. Folks, this wasn't just a military mission. This was a full-spectrum chess move. Trump hit the king, checked the bishops, and cleared the board before anyone even realized that the game started. And the best part, now Trump is holding all the leverage. Iran knows if they retaliate even slightly, Trump can hit harder. And next time, it won't be their nukes. It'll be their oil refineries, their gas-powered electric grid, their military command. Now, he could take down the entire Iranian economy in a weekend. Meanwhile, our allies are standing taller. Israel knows America has their back. Saudi Arabia knows the region just shifted, and China, watching nervously, knowing this was a preview of what could happen if they overstep on Taiwan. So this, my friends, is what peace through strength looks like. But just as Trump was proving to the world that America is back, just as even his critics were being forced to admit this mission was a success, that's when the stab came from inside the Republican Party, not from Chuck Schumer, not from AOC, not from CNN or MSNBC, but from a man who calls himself a conservative, a man who stood up and said, no, this wasn't a win. Trump should have asked for our permission first. Seriously? While our B-2s were returning home victorious, he's already filing a war powers resolution to try to strip Trump's authority? Yeah, you're not going to believe what this guy said on national TV, guys, but I'm going to share it with you guys. And so now here's where the story turns from victory to betrayal. Because while President Trump was still being hailed by allies, analysts, even hostile media as the only world leader bold enough to eliminate Iran's nuclear program in one night, mind you, one man wearing the Republican badge stepped forward not to celebrate, but to attack. His name, Congressman Thomas Massie. That's right, guys. A sitting Republican, a man who claims to be part of the America First movement, a man who rode into office waving the Constitution. He just teamed up with Democrat Ro Khanna to push a resolution that would have essentially made Trump's Iran strike illegal to do. You heard me, guys. Less than 48 hours after Trump neutralized one of the greatest threats to global peace since the Cold War, Thomas Massie co-authored a war powers resolution demanding that Trump be stripped of the authority to act without congressional approval. Here's what Thomas Massie said in his own words during a Sunday interview. There was no immediate threat. Congress wasn't briefed. The president can't just bypass the Constitution. We were promised an end to endless wars. Now, hold on, guys. Let's pause right there. Endless wars? Trump just ended one before it could even begin. No boots were on the ground, no casualties, no occupation, no quagmire. This was a surgical strike. This was peace through dominance. But Thomas Massie didn't care. He didn't thank our military. He didn't praise the precision. He didn't even acknowledge the fact that Trump prevented a war, not started one. So instead, he tried to paint Trump as some kind of a rogue warmonger. And folks, President Trump did not stay silent. Oh no. He took to Truth Social and unleashed one of the most scathing rebuttals we've seen this year. So here's just a taste of what President Trump said, and I quote, Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky is not MAGA, even though he likes to say he is. Actually, MAGA doesn't even want him, doesn't know him, doesn't respect him. He's a negative force who almost always votes no matter how good something may be. He's a simple-minded grandstander who thinks it's good politics for Iran to have nuclear weapons while yelling death to America. He is weak, ineffective, and votes no on virtually everything. MAGA should drop this pathetic loser like the plague. Wow. So you could pretty much feel the heat through the screen, right? And then President Trump dropped the real bombshell. He said, we have a strong patriot running against him in the primary, and I'll be in Kentucky campaigning hard. So let's be clear. This is not just a political disagreement. This is a line in the sand. Massie didn't just challenge Trump's authority. He challenged the America First doctrine itself. And the timing, it really probably couldn't have been any worse. So right as America reclaimed strength, deterrence, and global respect, one of our own tried to undercut the victory. So now we got to ask, is Thomas Massie defending liberty, or is he sabotaging a president who just saved the world from nuclear escalation? Because as you're about to see, this wasn't just a one-off outburst. The cracks inside the Republican Party are starting to widen, unfortunately. So what happened after Trump fired back at Massie? The Republican Party started to splinter right before our very eyes. So on the one side, you have the America First patriots, the fighters who believe in strength, deterrence, and bold leadership. The ones who know that President Trump's Iran strike wasn't just justified, it was historic. But on the other side, you got a growing handful of so-called constitutional conservatives who all of a sudden get cold feet every time Trump takes action. They talk tough right up until it's time to act. They tweet about liberty, but shrink from real world consequences. And in this particular case, they're willing to handcuff their own president while the enemy rearms. So let's be blunt here. This wasn't just a policy disagreement. This was a public GOP civil war in the middle of a foreign policy success. And it's not just Thomas Massie. Behind closed doors, several other House members are reportedly concerned about the scope of Trump's authority. Unbelievable. Some are already murmuring about restoring balance to Congress. Translation, they want control. Even if it means weakening the commander-in-chief during a global crisis. This is what happens when career politicians forget what strength looks like. They see bold action and then they panic like some pansies. But while the GOP wrestles with itself, we cannot forget the enemy is still out there, because even after getting knocked flat by Trump's B-2 strike, Iran hasn't backed down. Sure, they rattled, they're a little bit rattled right now. Sure, their foreign ministers stammering through interviews, but let's not kid ourselves. Iranian sleeper cells are still embedded in the West. The proxies in Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq are still armed, and their cyber units, they're still dangerous. The FBI and DHS are already on high alert for potential retaliation from all angles, including sleeper cells. We're talking possible attacks on U.S. embassies, digital strikes on American infrastructure, and threats to our energy grid or key shipping lanes. So while Trump's move brought us, it bought us some time, it bought us some leverage, it did not entirely eliminate the threat. But here is the key difference now. We're not reacting from weakness anymore. We're actually positioned from strength, and that matters. Because for the first time in years, the U.S. isn't playing defense. We're dictating the terms. And Trump is making it clear any retaliation won't be answered with diplomacy. It will be answered with devastation. And yet, somehow, with all of that on the line, you got some members of Trump's own party still wanting to rein him in. You can't make this stuff up, guys. But here's the thing. This betrayal will not be forgotten. Not by Trump, not by the base, and not by the millions of Americans who still believe in peace through strength. So we need to talk about what comes next. Because make no mistake, this is not the end of something. This is probably only the beginning. President Trump didn't just strike Iran. He redefined the rules of engagement. For decades, presidents dreamed of dismantling Iran's nuclear program. Some talked tough, others folded. Trump, he did it. And now, for the first time in over 40 years, the United States has total leverage over the Islamic Republic. Why? Because Iran isn't just humiliated, they're concerned. Their enrichment facilities destroyed, their uranium stockpile, it's likely gone. Their military command is scrambling. And now Trump can walk to the negotiating table and say, hey, look, we're not here to talk about limits. We're here to talk about zero enrichment. No nukes, no centrifuges, no games. And guess what? He'll get it. Because what other option does Iran have? Even their backers, China, Russia, they're second guessing how far they're willing to go. Because the message has been received worldwide. Trump speaks softly and then drops bunker busters. Meanwhile, Trump's alliance with Israel has never been stronger. Reports indicate that covert coordination is underway. If Iran's proxies fire another shot, Israeli jets will flatten Hezbollah and Hamas networks across the region. And yes, this in fact was a turning point, but only if we hold the line. And that brings us right on back to the betrayal, because as Trump secures peace from a position of unmatched strength, he's being sabotaged from within by Republicans who would rather flex parliamentary power than defend the country, by politicians who forgot who leads this movement. And the base hasn't forgotten. And I'm going to go ahead and say this real clear, very clearly. You don't stab the commander-in-chief in the back the moment he delivers the greatest foreign policy victory in decades. You respect him, and you expect to keep your seat. You're going to get eliminated. That was likely the dumbest move that this Thomas Massie could have ever done. The primary season is coming, and the America First movement isn't just watching. We're remembering names, okay? So just remember, guys, Thomas Massie, he made his choice. Now voters will make theirs, because this moment, it's not about party. It's not about politics. It's about protecting this nation from collapse, foreign and domestic. And right now, there's only one man who's proven that he can do it when it matters the most. President Donald J. Trump. He warned them, he mocked them, he struck. And now the world is watching. But the fight is not over. So I'm going to leave you with this. Do you think Iran will dare retaliate? Will Thomas Massie pay the political price? And what should Trump do next with this new leverage? Drop your thoughts in the comments, guys. I want to hear from every patriot that's watching right now. And if you're tired of fake conservatives, media lies, and weak leadership, do me a favor, like this video, share it with someone who still believes America should lead, and subscribe, because this is only the beginning. We are not done. We are only just now getting started. Make America strong again. Make America respected again. And let's make America great again as well.
Bye.